You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I'm joined by Brad Hunt. And we're doing a quick Q&A. We're just going to answer a few questions that we got on the YouTube channel here recently while we've been out hunting. We did this gear drop. We had a lot of questions around gear, a few others. And I'm just going to go through them real quick. One of the questions we got, Matt Myers, you asked, can you use the boot fans to hang in the top of the teepee to circulate warm air? That's a great question. The answer is yes, but you got to find a way to sort of mount them. Mm-hmm. Now, with the new Peaks teepee that we've been, the prototype teepee we've been testing, you could just set them on the mesh net. Yeah. And just let them blow down. Yep.
And in the past, like, you know, using the Cimarron or one of the other Seek Outside teepees or tents, what I've done is, because we used it last fall on a couple of the hunts that I did, is I took a piece of tape, put it on my battery pack of, you know, like my dark energy, and then I would stick it on the very top of the pole, so it's kind of sandwiched between the peak of the teepee, the end of the pole. And then it just kind of hangs there, and
you can rig it so you can put the fans up there, and there is enough cubic feet, inches, CF, whatever it is, of air volume being moved by the fans that it actually does circulate the air in there and kind of push that heat down and throughout the whole teepee. Yep. It's not super impressive, but you can feel it blowing on you. And that only though is it only really makes a difference though if you've kind of got the teepee sucked to the ground, and there's not a lot of air being able to come in, and even if on the inside or the outside you've stacked or built up a little bit, like sometimes we'll grab brush, we'll grab a few sticks and rocks, and we'll kind of put it around the base of the teepee, and then inside we'll put our gear up kind of against the edge inside.
We're basically sealing it so we're not getting like any airflow.
Yeah, there's no airflow coming in underneath, because that will cut your heat pretty quickly.
And the reason we do that is because we have a stove. If you don't have a stove, you can't get away with that. You have
it depends on the climate. Depends on the climate.
If you're in especially colder weather, you're going to get the condensation.
What Brad is saying is if you don't have you're going to get condensation in a single wall shelter in hot, cold temps that jump really quick in between. Yep. It's no different than, let's say, for people who wear glasses. Yep. Like if you're outside in some icy cold temperature, and all of a sudden you step into a warm teepee and poof, your glasses fog up. Yep. That's condensation. Like the change from hot to cold, especially quick changes, will cause condensation. It'll turn, it'll make cold air into liquid. And so the problem, what you end up with in a single wall shelter like a teepee, is the inside walls, if there's no airflow at all, but it's really cold outside and you're breathing and you got body heat inside, but it's not warm enough like a stove to evaporate all the moisture, then that moisture just collects in the wall of the teepee. Now, if you allow a lot of airflow through the bottom and you have vents open on the top of the teepee, you'll get less condensation. But in general, late season when there's snow on the ground, if there's a body in that, even if there's a lot of airflow, you're going to get some wetness. Now, for us, there is no reason to use a teepee if you don't have a wood stove to go with it. Yeah. At that point, you might as well use a dome shelter or something, or a double wall, or even then you're still going to get some condensation. So to us, it's like teepee and stove combo is the way to go. Yep. Why would you not? And then with the stove, if you have the appropriate size stove, so that when it gets hot, it'll fill the teepee up. And as it gets hot, the hottest air will be at the top, and it'll slowly push that hot air down. But if you have a gap or a hole or a vent that's wide open on your teepee, it will just take that hot air from you. It'll steal it. Yeah. So then you're only warm if you sit up or stand in the top 3 feet of the teepee, and the bottom 3 or 4 feet of the teepee is cold.
Cold, wet, miserable.
So again, we tend to set up our teepees, suck it as tight to the ground. This is in late cold season.
Yep.
Suck it tight to the ground. Even add a little bit of grass and brush or trees or bushes or whatever we have to, rocks around the base to sort of keep that wind from cutting underneath the teepee. Even stack our own
Like
backpack,
food bags, everything around the inside.
The inside of the teepee. The vents up above, we seal those off with. We stuff some things in there, or some of the teepees have like a Velcro
or
thing,
a
wire that kind of opens and closes those vents. We'll even use duct tape, whatever. Like we seal those vents up. So your teepee is mostly airtight. So you're really maximizing the heat from your stove.
Yeah.
You don't really need the fans in there if your teepee's sealed and your stove is big enough.
Yep.
I mean, you'll be roasting.
And
you'll be opening, like we opened the vent, like our tent got too hot a lot. And on the teepee, on this Peaks prototype, we can actually unzip it. The dome door, there's a zipper going both ways. You can open there's like a window. You can open that thing up on two sides and the air will flow through. And we ended up the stove just gets hot or cold. It gets hot. And when it gets super hot, you can quickly vent it and like save yourself from like burning alive in there.
Yeah. I know there's sometimes you can't escape the heat enough, but in the situations where we have used the fans up in the top of the teepee, was drying stuff out was the main reason, and just trying to get airflow blowing on it. But using this Peaks teepee, because you have stuff where you can hang it, you're not figuring out ways to hang stuff off a tripod. You can put it in the mesh net. You can put it in the trekking poles up on the top of that teepee.
The trekking poles go across like this in the teepee.
You can hang stuff, and it's like a dryer sitting up there with that heat, just drying
blowing
out
around and stuff.
Yep.
But the other thing too is with the Seek Outside, where it doesn't have the trekking pole mounts inside of it, they have a kind of a string that goes around the inside.
On the Red Cliff it does.
On the Red Cliff.
The
Cimarron doesn't.
Yep.
But there are some tie-offs here and there, but it still sags in the teepee and it doesn't work nearly. You cannot hang the volume of clothes as you can in the Peaks.
Yeah.
So when we're using a Seek and we don't have the trekkers like we do in the Peaks, then we use a tripod, and we'll set up the tripod, and so it's near the peak, and we'll even set up two tripods sometimes to string a line between them, and then you get some space to hang. But man, the Peaks was really nice for putting the trekking poles up there.
The first day when we got rained on and soaking wet and everything, the amount of clothes and boots and gear we had was incredible.
But you can figure out how to run that fan. But like I said, you're better off just kind of sealing the teepee off and then having a really hot stove.
Yep.
You can always, I like the stove size. For this late season stuff, the large U-turn gets the job done.
Yeah.
Just fine. We were totally hot and warm most of the time and had to vent it a lot, but we did have to seal it up a bit. If you ran the SXL in something like the Cimarron or the Peaks prototype that we've got, what's nice is once you hit the coals, I mean, that's enough to heat up that whole space without having to have a raging fire. But I also feel like it could get so hot you could melt stuff in there. And so we actually liked the large U-turn size in the Cimarron size shelter, even in these teen temperatures we were in.
Yep.
But you could go SXL, which is what Ryan and Kayam had. It's a little heavier, bulkier, but does put out a little more heat.
Yep.
I don't know. It is nice to have that heat. You don't have to seal up the bottom or vent it as much.
Yeah, because it's putting out more
Because it's just putting
heat.
out so much heat.
Yep.
So...
one of the questions on the Moose Hunting Up North podcast you did with Lampers, it says, how did you like the Origin gear?
So I just talked about that on another podcast, and I have my favorite jacket that they're making right here, and it's like their wool camo, whatever. I go back and listen to that podcast. It was a gear post-hunt gear discussion that we had. But for me, this is the jacket. I just put it on. If you're watching the YouTube video, you can see it. But I can't recommend it enough. I think it's going to be great for elk hunting early season. I'll probably live in it when I'm bow hunting a lot. But for even these late season hunts that we just did, like I just told you, it's a bit of a weight, compared to puffies, you know, in like a light rain shell outer layer. I mean, this kind of mid-weight merino wool layer that's a little heavier and thicker. It's kind of what your dad used to wear. Kind of like a flannel or something.
Yeah. Yep. That heavier wool that me as a kid, I mean, that's what we were wearing.
It's not even that heavy.
But it's not super heavy, but it does help wick water, but even when it gets wet,
yeah,
it's still warm.
My thing is it's the most comfortable, it has an extremely comfortable comfort range, heat temperature range. So it's super comfortable when it's really cold, it's still warm. And when it's really hot and you're sweating, it vents, breathes a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's the nature of wool. It's just incredibly comfortable. So if it's 70 degrees, I don't take it off. It's like, oh, it's breathing. I'm climbing, I'm hiking, you know. If it's 20 degrees, I'm not necessarily ready to add a layer. Like, it's got that wide range of comfort, and it's the one layer that you wear if you sweat a lot like me, where you can wear it, sweat in it, get it wet. It can get rained on the outside even, and it still keeps its R value. It still stays warm and comfortable, even though it got damp, and then it dries out pretty quick. So I think I love it. I'm actually really happy with it. I don't have any kind of arrangement with Origin at all. Yeah. This is just my unbiased testing opinion. I was interested in what Origin was producing because I'm very pro-American, and I want to see U.S. manufacturers excel and win. And they're doing something that most people say can't be done, which is manufacture hunting clothing inside the United States. Now, they're not creating a down jacket like what I used on this last hunt from Stone Glacier or Kuyu or something. Yep. They're not creating that technical garment just yet. Probably don't have the capability of doing it necessarily in the United States, like getting the materials and the fibers and all that. Yeah. But what they can produce, they have started. And anybody who can go out and support them in continuing to produce what they can produce so that later they can produce the other stuff. Yeah. Get in on it, man. Yep. Plus these guys they're just pro-America, man. We need more of what they're doing to be done here. Mm-hmm. And so go support them. So that was a great question. I love it. So I wouldn't say I liked it. Wouldn't say I loved it if I didn't. Yeah. Like, what I love about it is I'm pro what they're doing, but I also have zero reservations about recommending the quality and the comfort of the jacket. Yeah. Like, I'm really, really like.
I was curious because on the hunt, like, you used it a lot.
I never took it off.
You never took it off. And
that's legit. I didn't fake it.
There were multiple times you're like, dude, I'm loving this jacket. Like, the more I wear it, I really like it. Like, I just don't have to layer up as much. And if I'm hot, I'm still wearing it. If I'm cold, I don't feel like I need, like I said, you don't need to put something on.
I'm sure the guys would like me to wear their whole system. Like, try out the whole system. And I will eventually. But when we're mountain hunting and we're doing weight and technical garments and the technology that we have today with the puffy jackets and so forth and the rain gear, what Origin has isn't quite there yet, but I'm going to try it. I think it would work, but it will come at a higher weight cost and other things. But there is no reason while you guys that want a high performing setup right now can't incorporate like this wool jacket into your,
well, especially if you're not going on like a 10-day hunt, you know, you're only going for 2 days and you're not like super weight conscious.
Even the 10-day though, like I made fun of Ryan's San Francisco wool found under a bridge homeless merino jacket. For years he's been wearing that, and you know, and I kind of am like, it doesn't really fit the technical garment category for us mountain hunters. Yeah. But then, you know, but he still wears it all the time. and it's also American made, out of a company in Bozeman. And look, there's a reason why he's been using that.
Yeah.
Because there is no replacement for this, but about this weight of wool jacket for comfort and performance.
Yeah.
It's that. So who's making this?
Yeah.
Non-hunting company.
Exactly.
Who's making this sort of in-between piece? So we jump from the thin merinos to like the sort of synthetic. You have like various companies like Sitka putting out certain weight jackets that kind of have similar performance to this, but aren't made out of wool.
Right.
They got various like high-tech synthetic fibers. Some of the ones I'm thinking of is like the shacket, like the shirt jacket. Ryan really liked that when we used it. He used it in New Zealand. But the merino is more durable and actually more. Yeah. I like it better for that temperature range.
Yeah, when it's cold outside and then you still got to hike.
Especially if you have to hike.
Yeah.
Like, to me, this is super cold, but I got to hike. This is what I'm going to wear.
Yeah.
I'm going to wear it. I mean, it's just so comfortable.
Yeah.
So enough of that. Let's say somebody asked about the, I tried to find the S-Bit fire starter, but I'm having no luck. Could you post a link? So Brad posted a link in there.
Yep. And ESBIT.
Yeah.
So S-Bit.
S-Bit. And it's cheap and it works really well.
Yep.
The way that we start fires in the stove is pretty much we take a block of S-Bit, we light it on fire.
We're talking like a small block. We'll usually break it up like into quarters.
Yep.
Of the
It
block.
burns a really long time. So you take that, you light it with your lighter, it's in the stove, and I take my first stick, and it can be thick, like as thick as my thumb. I just set it right on top of the S-Bit. I stack another one on. I pop 3 or 4 like fat sticks on there. I don't need kindling.
Nope.
This is not going to improve your fire starting skills for when you don't have a fire starter. There's no challenge in it. You just put it in there, light it, put your sticks on there. It lights up pretty quick, and you just stack more wood on it, and you have a fire. It's almost not fair.
Right.
So, ESBIT, S-Bit. Just ordered the headlamp. Thank you. You're welcome. So if you don't have a Peaks Duo headlamp, check it out. You need to go check it out. I don't know if they have any in stock. They sell them out pretty quick usually, but they're worth every penny. Use the code GRITTY. We've talked about it many times.
Yep. So here's a question for you. This was on the last gear dump we did on before we left on the late season hunts. And this is Thomas Sparks. He says, do you keep your hunting clothes in totes, or do you just keep them in your closet? I'm wondering how extreme I need to be keeping scents away from hunting clothing.
We are not whitetail hunters.
Nope.
We can't really control when you hike 10 miles into a spot.
You hike
you're
500 yards into a spot where it's really, really steep. You're gonna sweat.
Yeah.
Like no matter what. As soon as you start sweating at all, like all scent goes out the door.
We play the wind. We don't bother with scent.
Yep.
We reek to high heaven, like whatever we smell like. You don't really have the control over. You just got to manage the wind.
Yeah.
I get it. For whitetail hunting, rubber boots and the whole deal. And
there's lots of slow.
Yeah, there's all sorts of strategies, and I think that can play a definite role in your success. Tree stand hunting, things like that. But in a controlled environment, like that, where you have extreme control over the variables, you're going to ride an e-bike in so you don't sweat, and you're not going to leave your scent on the ground. You got your rubber boots, and you're going to move into a tree. Like there's scent issues there, but mountain hunting, you play the wind.
You have to play the wind. Yep. Great question. Let's see. John Bartell on the same podcast actually asked, does the Puffy vest perform worse since it's been all smashed up in a small space? I heard somewhere that you aren't supposed to, but I could be wrong.
I don't store my down compressed.
Yeah.
So when I get home, it just gets hung up in the closet or tossed into a tote or something, but it's not compressed.
Same with like my sleeping bag.
Yeah, sleeping bags, all the down, all the feathers, it's all not compressed.
Now, in the backpack,
I compress the hell out of it during the hunts.
Down, but it's not for such a long period of time that the feathers and all that stuff are being, The
other thing too is nowadays when I wash my down, which I do quite often, the loft comes right back. I didn't used to wash my down, but it seems like nowadays I get away with it quite a bit. Now every piece of down is a little different, but I've noticed that by doing a gentle wash with some gentle soap and then letting it just sort of tumble dry with just air, no heat really. Maybe a touch of heat for just a little bit and then let it air dry again. It just, it gets real.
You do your sleeping bag for 2 years, haven't washed it, and then you do that. And you're
it's like a brand new bag.
It's like, man, this thing is puffy, huge. I'm floating on the air pad.
Yeah. So I think, but don't even worry about, I don't store it compressed, but I don't, during hunts, I smash it into the tiniest ball I can all the time.
It's not getting formed and because it's not in that position long enough.
And if you wash it and care for it, you'll be fine. But yeah, you don't want to store it. You can really weaken the performance of down if you store it for 6 months or a year in a super compressed form, and then you pull it out and everything stays flat. And I don't know if washing couldn't even fix some of that.
Right.
So Kyle Hamilton said, geez, that's a lot of clothes and gadgets. Heavy. We went over the weights on just an earlier show. It's not heavy. In fact, for hunting, that's kind of when you say gadgets and everything, it's what we have found is effective for what we do. So I just did my pack weight over here. It's 35 pounds. The only thing that I didn't have in my pack as my base weight for my pack was spotter and tripod and teepee. But I did carry the Jetboil Minimo stove, gas. I carried the that Brad and I shared, and I carried the titanium stove and the titanium pipe and all of that. The Seek Outside large U-turn.
So that's the thing too. Is we try to iterate with people is if you're paired up, on a hunt, or you got 3 guys, you don't need redundant. Like there's 2 guys. Pack one cook stove,
Split the weight of the shelter. One guy carries the wood stove, one guy carries the shelter. So back to 35 pounds is what I was carrying. My rifle was 6 pounds. So that's 41 pounds total. And that's with bullets and the whole spiel. That's pretty tough to beat. Then you add your food and water on top of that. And food and water is just what it is.
That's where it starts to get heavy, is food and water.
You don't really get an option with food and water to whittle it down much lower than 2 pounds a day is the best you're going to get with food.
Not unless you're starving yourself.
And we're over it. We're 2.3
I'm 2.2. You're like 2.5.
Sometimes 2.5 if I really want to indulge. And I want to bring like salami and cheese, which sometimes I want to. Or sardines. Sometimes that's what I want, man. So yes, I think that, this isn't that, we've got it pretty lean. It's not as heavy as people think. Like I said, this pack is 35 pounds. Again, the rifle situation, what are you going to do? You got to bring a rifle. So, when I say this thing gets up to 40 pounds, if you didn't bring a pickaxe, you'd probably be at 40 pounds. And you're about 40 pounds as well, because you brought the spotter, tripod, and the teepee. So we kind of even out. Now, I would be more like 50 pounds with the weapon and everything, or 50 or 47 or something like that, if I was carrying all the stuff that you were already carrying. So no, it's not that bad. Like I said, 35 pounds plus the weight of the weapon, 40 pounds, and then we said roughly 10 days of food at 2.3 pounds per day is 23 pounds of food. Water, it depends on how much you need to carry. Hopefully you can just get water after you find your camping spot. If you camp near water, and then it's a non-issue. But to be at 40 pounds with weapon, let's say you're going on a 5-day hunt. 5 days at 2.3 pounds is like 12 pounds.
Roughly 12, something like that.
So, you could probably get it down to maybe 10. So if you did a 5-day backcountry hunt, then you're talking 50 pounds is your weight. Now, when you get to your base camp, keep in mind, you're not hunting with all of that on your back.
Usually. There are times that, we're continually moving.
Yeah.
But we usually try, at least for a few days, hunt out of one spot.
You usually get on game, and now
Yeah.
you're waiting and you're kind of playing it by ear, and you set up a shelter for the day or 2 days, and then you spike out after it.
Exactly.
And so your pack is 10 or 15 pounds for the day because you need your optics, maybe some camera gear, you need a little food for the day,
like
and
some
water.
25-ish pounds.
And I'll get into sort of our breakaway kit. But, your sleeping bag, your air pad, your shelter, your ground cloth, your stoves.
If you know it's not going to rain for sure, your rain
gear, like a lot of that stuff, your food every day, 20 pounds of food sometimes, it all gets left at a shelter. And so then you're just day hiking with 10 or 15 pounds of weight. So, to get into a spot 10 miles in with a 50-pound pack for a 5 or 6 day hunt, that's light. I don't know how you're going to get a whole lot lighter. So,
and this is from the Gear Dump as well. It's Ryan Smith. He says, great video, thanks. I've been trying to decide between the Kuiu Super Down Pro or the Super Down Ultra. Why do you use the Ultra?
For what, the vest or the...
Like your puppy clothing. You have the
I have
Ultra.
both.
Yeah, you have both, exactly.
I have both.
Yep.
I wear the one is more durable than the other.
Yeah.
The heavier, the bigger, what is it, the Super Down Pro is warmer and more heavy duty. And then the Ultra is lighter and a little less heavy duty.
Yeah.
But, this year, on this last hunt, I used the Stone Glacier Puffy. I forget what it's called. You might want to look it up.
Gunman Down or something like that.
Grumman?
Grumman Down? I can't remember.
Grumman something. Look, I like the, it doesn't matter to me.
Grumman Down.
That's what I said.
Or Grumman. Grumman.
Yeah, that's what I said. That.
I'm not sure.
So anyway, I think, for the vest, I like the Ultra. And for the jacket that you're going to wear is like your Puffy for the outer layer, the Pro. But you're splitting hairs. I think you go for the heaviest duty, warmest version if you're going to go real cold season, and then get the Ultra vest to wear underneath it.
Yeah.
But I also like the Stone one I just used as well. Puffies are puffies, they compress, they're small, they have loft. You kind of figure out what works for you in terms of what weight you want, but I would recommend the Pro, everything Pro, just so that you err on the side of warmth. If money's an issue and you're on a budget, don't get the Ultra. It's just a little too lightweight for this late season stuff. But if I like the Ultra for my vest underneath, but I don't like the Ultra jacket long sleeve. It's just too lightweight.
Yeah.
It's too lightweight. Like, I want the Pro.
So this is actually from one of our old hunts, but it's a recent question, and I've seen it a couple different times. It says, what hearing protection are you guys using while hunting? I cannot remember the name of it.
You go to Sportsman's Warehouse or something like that, and it's just like a putty, and you smash it and you put it in your ears. Yep. But we're also working on getting suppressors put on the rifles, so we don't need to worry about it.
Yep.
Because it's just stupid that we had to fumble for earplugs when we go to shoot.
Yep.
But it's also stupid how you have to go through hoops to get a suppressor put onto a gun.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we use, the 2-part molded putty.
I have one pair in my top lid of my pack, and then I have another in my bino harness for quick grabbing. So I always bring 2 pairs of ear protection just in case. They're easy to lose. You're in the heat of the moment, you're about to shoot something and it falls on the ground and then you're hosed. So always bring 2. They're tiny, they're lightweight, but we have the putty, like I said, and you form it into your ear, and so then it really seals up your ear pretty good.
This is actually from an old podcast, but it says, have you ever tried a Gore-Tex Bivvy sack? No tent or ground cloths needed.
Not interested.
Yep, sounds heavy.
Not interested. And I'll tell you why. Because I don't think that it's nowadays with the way shelters are so lightweight, like the especially with Cuban fiber type material. You know, if you were to bring a Cuban fiber Silex, what is that weigh?
It's like 12 ounces or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's light.
It's light. 12 ounces, you use your own trekking poles to pitch it, and then it has a stove jack. You can have one with a stove jack, and then you can have the little cub stove or something, and then you have heat. It's just so much more versatile, and there's not the weight penalty that there used to be back when people used Bivvy sacks.
You can have a stove, like having a stove.
You get soaking wet, you can climb in there, get a stove going, and you can dry out your stuff. You mentioned this you asked me the question, what piece of gear in this like 20-degree temp hunts that we're on is the most critical to you that you just can't live without? And I'm like, the shelter. The shelter stove combo. The heat. Heat is king.
Drying out, warmth, cooking on. Like, there's so many options that save your bacon.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's the thing that prevents you from coming home early. Like, it's miserable to wake up and be inside. You're going to have sweat and moisture that collects with your body heat inside the Gore-Tex Bivvy sack. And so you climb in there, and let's say it's pouring rain and snow, and now you got to get up.
Yeah.
And you want to change your clothes, you want to dry out your socks from the day before, or your pants got super wet, or you're wet when you wake up in the morning. It's like you got to start a fire and stand around a bonfire outside to try to dry some things out. It's not efficient. Your boots get wet. Good luck ever drying them out next to a fire. You really need convection heat like you do from inside a teepee with a stove. No, not interested. Never going to use a Bivvy sack unless it's in Arizona and it's, I'm just keeping the scorpions out.
Yeah.
And like I love using, and we throw it in the side-by-side, we drive around and we hunt in Arizona, the
canvas cutter.
The canvas cutter.
Yep.
And we use canvas cutters all the time.
And
if we're near the truck.
I love having like the full pull system.
Which is like a Bivvy sack with a sweet mattress.
And I got a beautiful mattress that's like better than my bed,
It's dark. It's got like blackout lining so you can sleep in.
And I've woke up with, you can zip it, vent it, whatever, but I've also woke up with like 6 inches of snow on top of it too. And it has kept it out. But here's one from the gear dump. And it's a good question because I think it's in detail, like it depends on the type of saw. So it says, this is B-Mills. Do you use the saw for wood for the stove or just bone? And you guys can relate from your moose hunt.
So when you're cutting bone, you really want a hacksaw almost. You want a very fine tooth saw. And when you're cutting wood, for especially like burning in a stove, you want a really aggressive, non-fine tooth saw that just like a few slices and just eats up the wood.
The saw that he's referring to is we use the
Silky Pocket Boy
silky saw, and we have like the 130.
I have various versions depending on the hunt I'm going on. They're folding typically, so they're really lightweight, but they expand into something bigger. They're a great saw, and but the aggressiveness of the teeth can be difficult when you're trying to cut bone with the...
And it can dull the saw pretty fast.
If you have a really aggressive, jagged saw for cutting soft wood, like for cutting trees and stuff, or thick stuff, when you go to try to cut something skinny or something hard like bone, the teeth just get caught. It's almost like you're chopping it.
And when you use it on the bone, then it dulls those teeth. And then when you go to cut wood,
it's duller than
heck. And you're like,
over time.
Yes, forever.
So you can get like the middle, which would do great for both wood and bone. But we have never used it for bone because we don't need to for all of our butchering. But in Alaska, you had to take the ribs. By law on the caribou, and
instead
on the
of
moose.
Like taking forever to cut each rib loose, you can just use the saw. And
the saw just it did really good even with the aggressive teeth. But it would have been so much better had we had one of the silky saws with the finer with the finer teeth.
That's what I was going to say. If you, especially if you have a couple guys and you know you're going to be cutting bone, have one guy pack the very fine tooth to use on the bone, and the other guy pack the more aggressive tooth for wood.
So many nice comments about us breaking 100,000 subscribers. Woohoo!
Yes, thank you.
That's legit. We're kind of excited. Hopefully YouTube, the algorithms treat us with a little more kindness and promotes our content a little more. Who knows?
So this one, Roy Hogland, which we kind of went over on the last podcast with all our gear stuff, kind of what it weighs and that, but we can touch on it here. It says, what is your pack weight? Weigh totally loaded. I know with all the camera gear equipment you take, you roll with items that I don't, but it's interesting to hear the weight of y'all's haul. So camera gear, when we're together, I would say we split 16 pounds, something like that. We kind of split it between the two of us. Might be a little less.
It's 18 pounds.
18 pounds. That's right.
That you split.
Yep.
And it depends on what we decide to, which lenses and which gimbals.
Depends on the hunt.
We decide to bring or take with us.
Yep.
We can get the kit down to, 16 pounds split. So 8 pounds a piece. But usually we're more like 10 pounds each almost on a long excursion hunt, and we bring in all the fancy stuff.
Yep. And then you got your 35-pound pack, and then 2 whatever pounds per day.
What's been rough, and I think I deserve a lot of credit for this, is when Ryan and I go, Ryan doesn't carry much of anything of mine.
No.
And I end up with probably 15 to 18 pounds more weight sometimes on these hunts because I bring the camera gear and it just has some weight. Now, Ryan will bring a spotter, but my lens, my lens is
it exceeds the weight
7
of a
pounds, and the spotter's like 2, so it's not as fair trade.
No.
Batteries and so forth, but I would say we're getting it down to 8 or 9 pounds each in camera gear,
pretty close,
between microphones and all the stuff. About that. Yep. So you take all those weights we've mentioned and add 8 more pounds to it for cameras. Yep. If there's lately, it is the two of us on every single hunt, so we have been able to get that down. I mean, I used to carry 15 pounds by myself before you started coming along, and that sucked.
Yep.
Oh,
here's a good one, because it's something you deal with all the time. So it says, hey Brian, I recently started TRT. So this is Annalise and Stephen Blaylock. I recently started TRT after watching your podcast. I'm wondering if you pin while hunting. How do you carry that stuff?
Yeah, people ask, like, TRT is testosterone replacement therapy or HRT, hormone replacement therapy. I've mentioned this before. I started probably 3 years ago, testosterone replacement therapy. Maybe a little before that. I was talking to Joe Rogan, and we talked about, he shared some insight. I talked to a few other people, talked to Hillary Lampers about it. I have a couple of podcasts if you want to go back and check it in on that, where I discuss my experience with testosterone replacement therapy. I don't take much. I have a very, very small dose that I take. I also take gonadotropin, which is something that sort of allows me to produce my own testosterone, so that as I do take testosterone cypionate, when I take that in a shot I take it once a week in a little shot. But I didn't want to lose my body's, as you take exogenous hormones, your body will then stop producing its own hormones. So what I do is I take a prescription of gonadotropin, which is something that sort of preserves your body's ability to continue to produce its own testosterone. Then I just augment that with a little bit of testosterone on the side, because as I've aged, I produce less. And so I take a little bit. So my T levels aren't very high overall. In fact, they're lower than most of my friends, and I take a smaller dose. It's probably about the same T levels that I had in my early 30s, is about what I have now, combined with what I take externally and produce on my own. It helps me feel better, be more active, recover a little bit better from soreness and activity. And I've talked about this on the show. The question is, for guys that are older, like Ryan just turned 48. or 49. I'm 48.
Yep.
I'm 48. He's 49.
Old people.
And so Ryan's 1 year from 50. So we're not spring chickens.
Nope.
And but we get after it and we work really hard. And we could go down the rabbit hole of testosterone replacement therapy in men as they age,
but also food and what you're eating.
All sorts. It's a whole discussion.
Yes.
But the question is, because I do take a shot, and there's various ways you could take it through a lotion that you rub on your skin. You can take a. I don't think
not
you
a pill, but like you
it.
can have the pill inserted or whatever for the testosterone or whatever.
Oh, you're talking about not a pill. It's
like a seed planted, basically a capsule. Yeah.
That they insert under your skin.
Yeah.
They put a little insertion in your glute, and then they put it in there and tuck it and glue it shut.
Yep. And then over time, it just releases.
Yeah, it slowly releases. I forget what they call that.
Can't remember either.
Not a capsule, but whatever. There's various ways you can do it. I just take the shot because they don't bother me. Never have. And I know exactly what the dose is, and I take it. And then if I need to adjust it, it's quick and easy. Once you put a pellet in, it's a pellet.
Yeah.
Once you put the pellet in, you're kind of stuck with it for 4 or 5 months or 6 months until your body fully metabolizes it. So anyway, the question is what do I do when I go into the mountains? How do I pack it and bring it with me? Well, the gonadotropin has to be chilled. Mm-hmm. And so I'll throw it in my water bottle with some ice. I find a creek. I'll put it in the creek. Or I'll just skip it and won't take it at all for 2 weeks. So the testosterone, same thing. It actually has to stay at room temperature. It'll crystallize if it gets cold. But I'll just take a little, like you get these prescriptions and you have these big vials or little vials. I'll have these old vials that are empty, and I'll just syringe some out that I need for the time I'm God, like 2 shots over a 14-day or a 10-day period. So I'll just fill that little bottle, and then I'll throw a couple of needles in the bag, and I'll just toss it in my backpack. The testosterone's really easy. It doesn't have to be refrigerated. If anything, I might need to warm it up because it'll crystallize when it gets too cold. Throw it in my pocket. Set it by the stove, boil some hot water, and just set it in there for a minute or whatever if I needed to. So it's really simple. It's not a big deal. I'll bring like 2 needles and 1 little tiny vial for the trip. And then, but a lot of times I know it's lazy or it's probably not optimal, but I'll just not take it at all. I'm like, I'm just going to skip it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I do feel a little more soreness over time, and so I don't like to do that because I like to stay consistent with all my supplementation, from the CBD oil to calcium to my vitamin D and K and my testosterone supplementation, all that stuff. I like to stay on schedule, but sometimes it's inconvenient, and I'll skip it for a while and cycle back onto it. And I mean, honestly, I don't find that it bothers me that much to skip for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yep.
I just can't skip for 4 weeks or 6
Right.
weeks, or you start to feel that the aging, the tiredness and the soreness a little bit more. But it takes time of not taking it for me to notice I'm not taking it. It takes quite a bit of time. And I think that's because I produce quite a bit of tea just naturally. And when I stop injecting, I just continue producing, just not at the optimal level that I'd like to feel a little better. Where other guys, they don't produce any. They're at 0. They can't produce it if they wanted to.
Right.
And as they've switched, they're solely dependent on it because their body quit producing testosterone in their mid-30s or something. Yep. For you guys, skipping it you probably feel it. And you're not going light. You're climbing 2,000 feet to the top of this hill with a 90-pound pack. And then you're hunting for 7 days, and you're cold and you're wet and you're tired, and then you kill something and you got to pack out 120 pounds. Like, it's probably, you just got to bring it.
Yeah.
And so other guys do the pellets. So they, like I said, they have a little pellet about the size of a rice grain, and they'll cut your skin, your muscle.
Incision.
And they'll put a little incision, they'll cut the muscle, and they'll put that little rice grain in there, and then they'll stitch it shut or tape it shut, really.
Yeah.
They'll tape it shut, and in 2 or 3 days, it heals over, and it's totally healed. And then the body just slowly absorbs it. So there's no shots, there's no lotions, there's no nothing. And it absorbs it and metabolizes at some sort of equal rate. So your T levels are just sort of augmented and stay solid.
Yeah.
I recommend that's probably the best way to go for us active hunter types that always do it. And Hillary Lamperts is a certified technician where that's what she does. She puts that, she does it for women primarily, I think, but she also, I think, has some male clients as well. And we've talked about it quite a bit, and I've thought about going that route. My wife actually, she produced 0 testosterone after chemotherapy, after cancer. Her body just done. It just doesn't create testosterone. Women they need some level of testosterone to be active, for their sex drive, to feel good, all that stuff.
Yeah. And
it'd been quite a long time, and her body just quit. It just was broken a little bit. The endocrine system's, I think, your hormone system is fragile in the modern environment. A lot of things can throw it off. For whatever reason, it just quit being developed. Hillary is 0 too. I think she was like 10 or something. She produced none. So so my wife did a little pellet, but once you take it, you've taken it.
Yeah.
And if it's too much, it's too much. And if it's too low, it's too low. And Suzanne was a raging, Suzanne took too much, and she was like, I couldn't keep her hands off me, and things were a little intense, and I felt a lot of performance anxiety. There's a lot, back to back, right? There was a lot of intensity there. And so and she didn't like it because she grew a lot of hair on her face and things changed. And it took a while of trial and error to sort of figure out what worked. And then finally in the end, she's like, I can't do this pellet thing. It's too erratic. And she just went to some lotion, and she takes a little bit of a speed stick sort of deodorant and just puts it on a soft part of her skin. And it absorbs real quick, and she gets her T levels just a touch above, and they're really balanced, and she feels really great nowadays. Mm-hmm. And you kind of figure out what works for you, and hope that's probably more information than you need, but there you have it.
There you have it.
That's the situation I'm in, but definitely work on your health. Take it seriously. Be proactive. Go through the effort of taking the supplements that you need and bringing them on your hunts. I think a lot of guys are like, I'm going to get totally out of routine. I'm going to bag all my vitamins. I don't want to pack them. I don't want to pack, my gut health stuff. I don't want to pack my stealthy nutrition, whatever it is. And they're like, vitamin D, I can go without for 2 weeks. I just don't think that's good.
No,
I think
I definitely notice it if I don't pack it. And so I've been especially this last year, really adamant about taking my vitamins, my daily vitamins with me, my, sleep, getting good sleep. I'm packing my vitamin C, my vitamin D, I'm packing all that stuff. And I feel so much better.
Well, and if you add up the days that I've been hunting right now, you're talking moose, caribou, elk, mule deer, elk, and more mule deer. I mean, there's no joke. I mean, you're talking something like 30 days in the field.
Mm-hmm.
No, 45 days in the field.
Yep.
In a few month window here.
In a 60-day window.
And then we're heading back out again for another 20 days.
Yep.
When we go back to back like that, you don't get to just go, oh, I'm going to skip every single hunt, because every single trip becomes life.
Yep.
It's not just one little trip. It's continuous.
It ends up being months at a time.
It's chronic. And so, you really need to get behind, to me, I got to stick with it.
Yep.
I got to stay on it. All right, folks, I think that's it for today on the podcast. Hope this was useful. If you got any more questions, fire away in the comment section of our YouTube channel on our videos. We try to read all of them. We've been out of town a lot, doing our hunts and testing gear and, doing our thing. So this is a hard time of year for us to be really responsive, but we'll get back into it around Thanksgiving and just be reading those comments constantly. But leave us those comments and ask us more questions, and we'll cover more topics that you're interested in. I hope you're enjoying the Daniel Boone series. We're going to get back into that as soon as we get back from this next hunt, and we'll start releasing more of those. But yeah, we appreciate you. We thank you. Use the code GRITTY if you want to support us at Initial Ascent. You can do it at Peaks Equipment, Stealthy Nutrition, Mountain Ops. Yep. There's a link to a lot of companies that we work with and that are partners.
Go Hunt Gear Shop.
Go Hunt Gear Shop is another one. Also, the Go Hunt Explorer maps. There's lots of good deals over there. We've been using the digital map systems with Go Hunt throughout the season, and I think it's well worth the penny, especially for the desktop version, for scouting and routing and doing all your maps and your 3D and your terrain analysis. Is an excellent tool. The digital, the mobile app version, it's worth every penny especially for the satellite imagery that you're getting. We have leveraged it extensively on the hunt, and it's been a go-to tool. It's not as snappy as some of the competitor apps that are out there in terms of my location on the map. It's getting better all the time, and Go Hunt's continuing to work on it. They're going to continue to improve the product over and over again. It's got some neat features that you're not going to find on other competing maps. Like I've said before, the mobile app version it's not there to replace all your existing maps right now. It's an excellent tool to add to what you already have. Yeah. And we've said this for years. We recommend everybody have multiple map tools, map systems on their phones, from, like we've said, from Gaia to Base Map to there's a whole bunch of them out there, and you can try them all. And but you want to have the Go Hunt on there. There's nobody's touching them when it comes to the satellite imagery that we're leveraging. Yep. So check that out. Use the code GRITTY over there, and that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Stay gritty.